Want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. We have a jam-packed episode for you guys today. We're going over the John Collins free agency signing. How many years did the Detroit Pistons give him? Also be getting into the guaranteed years. Yeah, the guaranteed years. I think a lot of Pistons fans are really going to like the signing after we go over the guaranteed versus the non-guaranteed years with this John Collins acquisition. We'll also be going over Jalen Duren and what his possible market could be after the Lakers decided to trade for Walker Kessler and the Boston Celtics decided to sign Mitchell Robinson on a team-friendly deal. But let's get into it. But let's start with John Collins first, you guys. This comes from Shams Karania this morning. It says free agent John Collins has agreed to a 3-year, $51 million deal to sign with the Detroit Pistons, sources tell ESPN. Front court additions and new lob threat for Cade Cunningham in Detroit. Now, I told you guys if the Pistons were able to look at the power forward position in free agency, the two players I mentioned for several months were John Collins or Rui Hachimura. Those made the most sense for the Detroit Pistons, and stylistically, I like John Collins a little bit more than I like Rui. And I'll kind of expand on that, why I like John Collins a little bit more, why I think it's a better fit than a Rui. I think when you look at John Collins, you have to look at the Clippers last season. And they had James Harden until the deadline, and they had Kawhi Leonard. John Collins most nights was maybe the third or fourth option. He still averaged 13 points a game, still shot 40% from three, and was pretty effective for the Clippers this past season. I think in Detroit, he's going to get way more opportunities with Cade Cunningham. He's probably going to get some of the easiest baskets he's ever gotten in his career. I mean, you have to probably go back to when like Trae Young was throwing him lobs and throwing him dump off passes. Like it's going to be very similar to how Trae Young and John Collins had that connection in Atlanta to now in Detroit with Cade and John. I think John Collins is going to love getting these, 1-4 pick and rolls with Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to be able to stretch the floor with the Detroit Pistons. Could totally see him playing the dunker spot position under JB Bickerstaff as well. But overall, I do like this fit. He could run the floor really hard, can play the transition game, can shoot threes at a pretty good clip. Defensively, obviously there are lapses with him where he's not fully focused and locked in. But knowing this coaching staff, they will be all over him for not locking in defensively. But overall, you do have your starting power forward now with Tobias Harris' departure. He's likely to sign with another team in free agency. Who is that team? I don't know. I still hear that there is a lot of interest with the Charlotte Hornets. I don't really know if Tobias wants to go to Charlotte, but he will have some options to play for some veteran teams. But the contract was 3 years, $51 million. We did get some details though with the contract from Amari Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, and he's hearing per sources the last 2 years of John Collins' contract are non-guaranteed. Don't have the exact figures yet, but only the first year is fully guaranteed. Similar structure as Duncan Robinson's deal last season. So you look at the contract. So it was 3 years, $51 million, and only 1 year of $17 million is guaranteed. That's a hell of a value for the Detroit Pistons front office and organization. It's a very low risk move, if you ask me, because if it just doesn't work in Detroit, you're not really attached to the money long term. You're only attached for this upcoming season in 2026-27. And the structure of it is non-guaranteed. The final 2 years of his deal. So I love that. I'm sure a lot of Pistons fans are going to love hearing that as well. I think anytime we give contracts, I think a lot of Pistons fans have been so underwhelmed this offseason because all these talking heads keep saying we're going big game hunting, and then we've traded for Isaiah Joe, which is no shot at Isaiah Joe. He's a really good player. I think he's a really underrated, underappreciated player. And then John Collins, I think a lot of people were thinking like Jalen Brown, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving. When you hear all these talking heads on ESPN say the Pistons could go big game hunting, right? But, I like the addition of John Collins. Now, Keith Smith, who is a cap space expert, kind of outlined what he could see with this signing. So he says further evidence that the Pistons acquiring John Collins will be a sign and trade. In a sign and trade, a contract must be for 3 years, but only the first season has to be fully guaranteed. Pistons could tie this into the Isaiah Stewart to Memphis trade, or as part of something bigger. Excuse me, to be determined. So the Isaiah Stewart trade has still not been made official, and I believe they have until July 6th. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong to get that deal done. Anytime there are picks involved in trades on draft night, they do get a little bit more time to iron out the details. Now, you could attach more assets going out, more players going out. Other teams can get involved in the Pistons, Grizzlies, Isaiah Stewart trade. But Keith Smith of Spot Track believes that this is kind of heading towards a sign and trade situation with the Pistons and Clippers, or there could be more players or picks involved with the Memphis Grizzly deal as well. But something to kind of monitor and keep an eye on with the John Collins situation. Overall, you guys, I like the deal. I really like the deal for the Detroit Pistons. You get younger at power forward. You get a guy that can catch lobs, stretch the floor. So now we have our power forward. We can chill a little bit. Who's going to be the backup for? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think they can definitely look at a backup for if they want to, or they could just say, let's let Ron Holland play backup for, or someone off the bench, maybe a Javante Green situation. I'm not really sure. You also have Isaac Bonga, that is reportedly going to get his contract bought out after the summer league. Could he be a backup power forward off the bench for the Detroit Pistons? We'll have to wait and see. But things are getting a little bit more calmer. We have a little bit more clearer heads today. Yesterday, I was like, man, we do not have a power forward on the roster. This is not looking good. But, when you do podcasts every day, you probably overreact like a mofo. And I know I do that. So I do apologize. But appreciate you guys rocking with me during this whole ride of this off season. Let's get into segment 3 and our final segment of today's podcast. Jalen Duren. So we've talked about Jalen Duren quite a bit. Yesterday, he met with the Sacramento Kings. He met with the Los Angeles Lakers. Then we saw reports that he had interest when we were done recording with the Boston Celtics. Things have changed quite a bit since the last podcast. So Jalen Duren's market, to me, I think, has completely just shattered, and not in a good way. Not in a good way at all. So let's put this tweet on the screen. So Shams Charania broke the Walker Kessler trade, and it says, breaking: the Los Angeles Lakers are acquiring Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz for unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, first-round swaps in 2028 and 2030, sources tell ESPN. Kessler will sign a massive 4-year, $130 million deal with the Lakers. So if you guys do the math for the Walker Kessler deal, that would be $32.5 million on an average annual salary. So 32 AAV for Walker Kessler. Now, Mitchell Robinson signed with the Boston Celtics, where Jalen Duren and his representation had interest. It says free agent Mitchell Robinson has agreed to a 3-year, $47.4 million deal with the Boston Celtics, with a player option in his third season. Sources tell ESPN. Robinson departs from the Knicks after serving a key role on their historic championship run. So you kind of look at Mitchell Robinson. He signed a very, very team-friendly deal. 3 years, $47 million. Isaiah Hartenstein extension was only $25 million. Walker Kessler got $32 million. Like, Duren's market, to me, has completely just imploded, and not in a good way. Not in a good way if you're Duren and his agent and his representation. Now, we've heard reports that Jalen Duren wants $40 million. Walker Kessler's getting $32 million, and he's a better rim protector, better defender. Players like Isaiah Hartenstein is extending to stay with OKC for only average annual salary of $25 million. Mitchell Robinson, who's a better defender but a worse free throw shooter than you, but it still was a really big part to the Knicks championship run. He's only signing for 3 years, $47 million. Like the $40 million leverage thing that his agent and his representation is trying to get. Like the Pistons have just been playing like 4D chess over here, man. I think they knew that, the asking price was just way too high. Other teams that had meetings with him, that talked to him, and they decided, like, we're going to just go trade 4 first round picks for Walker Kessler. Like, we're not going to get into a bidding war, for Jalen Duren, and the Detroit Pistons aren't really like willing to work any type of sign and trade situations with us. Anyways, the Lakers forked over a lot of first round picks. Boston just had interest in upgrading their front court, but Mitchell Robinson, I think, is a really good piece for them. I think he will fit into their system quite nicely. The teams that Jalen Duren has really been, talking to and interested to, like, they're just saying, like, hey, we're gonna go with different options. The Kings are still the one team that still value him as a max player, according to Sam Amick of The Athletic, but Sacramento Kings really have only said, like, Domantas Sabonis or bust type of situations. Like, there's not even any word of them, attaching first to trade Jalen Duren to the Sacramento Kings. And, the reports yesterday is the Pistons have no interest in any type of sign and trade scenarios with the Kings or any other team. So the Pistons hold all the cards. They have all the leverage. It gets to a point, if you're, Jalen Duren, you might as well just take the offer that the Pistons gave you, whether it's $30 million a year, whether it's $35 million a year. The market right now for a center of his caliber isn't, I think, anywhere near the $200 million range. I don't think it's anywhere near the max that he's eligible for, the 5 years, 287. I think if you're Detroit, you're going to be able to get Jalen Duren on a cost-controlled contract where you're not really sweating it in the long-term future of how to build a team, and being worried if you're in the first or even the second apron, or being in the repeater tax with the aprons. You'll be able to get Jalen Duren on a pretty good contract, and he's 22 years old, so there's room for him to develop and expand his game offensively. I think defensively we kind of know what he is, but the market has completely just kind of crashed on him. And his agent. All the teams that he's been talking to, they've already kind of moved on, and they've traded for, or they've signed centers on cheaper deals. But let me know what you guys think, though, of the Jalen Duren situation. I'd love to hear it. Before we do end this podcast, we have to hear from our sponsors over at the FanDuel Sportsbook, you guys. And right now on NBA Futures Central Division odds, they have the Detroit Pistons as the odds-on favorite to win the NBA Central at a -175, followed by the Cleveland Cavaliers at a +230. Indiana is right below them at a +480. Then you have the Milwaukee Bucks at a +20,000, and the Chicago Bulls at a +25,000. But the Detroit Pistons are the odds-on favorite to win the NBA Central Division. As a Piston fan, it kind of made me smile. Like, hell yeah! Like, I'd love to see the Detroit Pistons on top and win the Central Division, right? But with this podcast, you guys, let me know what you guys think of the John Collins signing. Him signing for 1 full guaranteed year. It looks like it is going to be a sign and trade between the Detroit Pistons and the Clippers. This will possibly generate a trade exception for the Clippers to use in future deals for them. Let me know what you guys also think of the Jalen Duren situation and his possible market with Walker Kessler getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers and Mitchell Robinson going to the Boston Celtics. I will talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Hope you guys are staying cool, staying safe. And if there are any more developments, any more trades, any more moves for the Detroit Pistons, we will make sure to go live and start a podcast for you guys. But until next time, you guys, take care. As always, go Pistons. Peace.